This is Under the Dome. On today's episode, we'll take a closer look at a bill in North Carolina's General Assembly that would benefit children and adults with autism. For the News and Observer, I'm Lucille Sherman, your host for this episode of Under the Dome. It's Friday, March 12th. My guest today is a legislator whose family will be directly impacted by this legislation if it's signed into law. Representative Zack Hawkins is a father of two boys who are 4 and 6 years old who have both been diagnosed with autism. So he's the perfect person to sort of talk about what this bill looks like technically and also what it looks like in action. I'd also like to add, Representative Hawkins is a Democrat, and this bill is in the Senate and House sponsored by both Democrats and Republicans. That's significant, especially because Representative John Bell, the House Majority Leader, a Republican, is one of the sponsors of the House version of the bill. That means that it has a lot of support behind it, given the bumpy road that similar pieces of legislation have been on in the last few years. Before we get started, we'll be right back. Representative Hawkins, thanks so much for joining me today. I'd like to talk to you about this bipartisan bill you're sponsoring, House Bill 91. My understanding is that the bill would allow behavior analysts to no longer be supervised by licensed psychologists. Is that right?
That's correct. And as the estimated figures show, there are only about 62 of psychologists that have the specialization to oversee behavioral, therapists, and we have 65,000 kids estimated that have autism, and so it's a direct correlation between this, removing this barrier will directly allow us to better serve those folks, especially even in urban areas, but most certainly in rural areas.
Gotcha. Why did you decide to sign on as a sponsor of this bill?
My wife and I found out soon after I received the Democratic nomination for NC House at 18 that our now 6-year-old was, formally diagnosed. And then months later, I think it was, maybe around election time or shortly thereafter, before I was sworn into the General Assembly, we found out that our youngest, Adam, who's now 4, was diagnosed. And so it is very, very personal. And our journey as parents who have flexibility and have the ability to network, it was incredibly hard for us. And so to get into the system and figure out how to navigate, and ABA has just been such a godsend for both of our kids, and they've been able to improve and thrive under the system. Again, nothing's perfect, but it has really allowed them to explore. And so to think that others, just because they live in the wrong zip code or don't have the right insurances, et cetera, don't have access, it's heartbreaking.
So ABA means Applied Behavioral Analysis, and this bill would allow practitioners of ABA to have a little bit more freedom in their practice and thus be able to serve more kids and even adults with autism so that they can get better access to the therapy they need. Is that right?
That's correct. That's exactly right.
Why is this bill needed now then? Why is this the year for this legislation?
It's the stars are aligning. 5 years ago, I guess that was 2, maybe 3 sessions ago, the bill was first introduced. And then it had little support in the House and even less in the Senate. And then, fast forward to last session, Chuck McGrady brought it up. It passed the House. He and I got a chance to speak passionately about what this would do for people, and it passed. I think we only had 2 no votes in the House, and then it stalled in the Senate. The things that have changed are a few. First, we have some of our House members that are in the Senate, so they understand the issue, have heard it before, and then voted for it before. Secondly, we've established our IDD caucus, Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities Caucus, and through forming that, I'm co-chairing it in the House with John Bradford, and we found that there are multiple, both in the House and the Senate, who have family members, friends, or children with autism. And so out of sheer direct comparison, they know what they know the power of being served, or they know the impact of not being served. And so I think that has given us an ability to talk across the aisle and to have people who are, again, directly impacted and passionate about it. And so that's why we feel that this is the perfect time. And then the external reaction to the community reaction to our press conference and subsequent interviews is just overwhelming. And so everything is aligning, and people are coming together. They're rallying to contact their senators to push this. And so we really think that this is the time, and not to mention autism isn't going anywhere. So if we truly want to be a place where the weak grow strong and the strong grow great, we have to pass this bill.
So I want to rewind really quick. The House's version of the IDD caucus is co-chaired by you and Republican Representative John Bradford. Is that right?
That's right. Republican John Bradford, and so it's bipartisan and bicameral. Senator Crowlick in the Senate and Senator Sarah Crawford in the Senate, the Democrat and Republican. We know this to be, an important issue. And again, all of us, because we either through work experience or personal experience, we know that people with intellectual and developmental disabilities are not being able to maximize their potential, right? They're underemployed if they're adults, or unemployed. They're not receiving services for various reasons. And we want to come together and do something about it, regardless of politics.
I think it's worth noting, so currently the bill only applies to one type of certified behavioral analysts, and there are multiple different types of certified behavioral analysts in the state. But I'm told that every other state that licenses behavioral analysts licenses this specific type of behavioral analysts.
That's right. And that's serving our communities, we need to do this. And to also ensure that for people who want to come to North Carolina, who want to either come set up shop here to serve patients, or for families who want to come here or from here, moved away and want to come back, we need to make sure that this is in place. And for other, types of therapy, I mean, after we get this done and see how, implementation looks, we can always take those conversations up and have additional bills in the future. This is just making sure that, again, we're following the national trend and responding to a growing number of people in our state with autism.
And North Carolina is the only state that requires certified behavioral analysts to be overseen by licensed psychologists, correct?
That's right. That's to the best of our knowledge, and we, all of the research independently, plus through our staff, through legislative staff, and that's the common thought is that we're the only one that is in that situation, and so we can find the others that we're not. All right, mm-hmm. So that just as you can imagine, that doesn't make any sense, and we have to ask ourselves, why that is the case. And to be completely honest, it was just people weren't aware. People were not as aware about autism, the therapies, and so the education that we've been able to provide our colleagues has just been invaluable. And again, just in talking to my colleagues that have had a brother or a sister or some family member, them being able to share that makes all the difference in the world for someone to actually listen. Because if you're not into the autism world or space, then you just don't know. And that was probably me before I had kids. Now that I do, it's something that I'm willing to run through a wall for, and to make sure that every kid that has autism gets what they need in North Carolina.
Representative Hawkins, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Well, I can't thank you enough for having me and your willingness to highlight this important issue. And again, this bipartisan work that's being done. We don't get a chance to talk about that enough in Raleigh. And this is something that, as I said during the press conference, is something that allows us to see the humanity in each other and to actually do good regardless of where we come from and what party we represent. And it feels good.
We'll be right back. For more from our politics team, subscribe to the News and Observer at newsobserver.com/subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at Under the Dome and NC Insider, and sign up for our weekly political newsletter, also called Under the Dome, at newsobserver.com/newsletters. Thanks for listening.